NFL Network's Daniel Jeremiah has released his 2024 NFL Draft Mock Draft 1.0. I have not looked at it yet, wanted a fresh reaction to it, and that's what this video is going to be. Now, historically, I will mention that Daniel Jeremiah's Mock Draft 1.0 and all of his subsequent mock drafts are based on what he's hearing around the league, what he think will happen, not necessarily his draft rankings. And that's kind of typically how I've operated as well. You guys know that. Now, one of us, that being said, does have some more sources in and around the league. I'll let you figure out which is which. But we're going to go over this mock draft today. The only thing I know about this so far is that Bears, Commanders, Patriots, and Saints pick quarterbacks because I have the ability to read. That's kind of what that comes down to. Now, me don't read so good, but me try. And we'll start here with number one. And it is something that I've been doing as well. It's Caleb Williams to the Chicago Bears at number one. And yeah, it does make sense. Fields has improved, but he's not on the same level of a Caleb Williams, even now probably. Williams just has higher upside. He's honestly shown to be better. He's dominated college football at times, and I think put him behind a better offensive line, which certainly the Bears' offensive line is better than what he was dealing with at USC. And I think Caleb Williams is going to be an explosive playmaker in the NFL. Really, really talented player, and it just makes too much sense financially for the Bears to move on from Justin Fields, and you can also get something back for him as well. It really is like a no-brainer, and I've said that, and I know the Bears fans in my comment section say, why would we draft Caleb Williams? We have a quarterback, but you can get at least one of similar, if not better quality, which I believe Caleb Williams to be, and you save so much money, plus you probably get a couple picks back as well, and you reset the quarterback clock, and you get him for 5 years guaranteed, where Fields, you would need to extend after this next season for a lot more money. It just doesn't make any sense. So Caleb Williams, I really truly believe will be the number one overall pick, or Drake May if they lean that way, because Drake May is a very, very good prospect as well. Really big fan of his. We've talked about it, and I think it does, again, make sense. New head coach, new general manager. You are not tied to Sam Howell. Drake May is a tremendous prospect as well. I've said that I believe he would have been the first overall pick last year and the year before as well. Gotten some pushback on that from the comments, of course. What's new? But I stand true to that pretty easily. And CJ Stroud's played great, but he wasn't even the number one pick last year. I think May would have gone ahead of Bryce Young. Just better size profile and better NFL readiness. Bryce Young is a great improviser like Caleb Williams was, but Drake May can really sit in the pocket and make throws, but also get on the move as well. Really good athlete. Love Drake May, and I would hate to see him go to the Commanders, but I think it's pretty likely at this point. Although this is where things really start to get interesting. This is, it's exactly what I had in my last mock draft as well, even up to number 4, as you can see on the screen. But the Patriots, I think, is where the draft actually might start, because it's quarterback, probably Jaden Daniels, offensive tackle, maybe Alt or Fashanu, right? Or receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. would certainly be a good idea. Malik Neighbors, very close. We'll see. This portion of the video is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. You can use code BENGAL on Underdog to get a first-time deposit match up to $100. These are my picks for the divisional round of the NFL playoffs this weekend. And I do have it insured, so I only need 4 out of 5 to earn some type of a payout. Now, it is less than what you'd make for 5 out of 5 or uninsured, but you can also afford to lose one. Now, I have Aaron Jones higher, 18.5 receiving yards. CJ Stroud lower, 17.45 fantasy points. This one I think people are going to be lower on. I just think that the Ravens are going to be a really tough matchup for CJ Stroud. He's been playing amazingly of late. I just think Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator of the Ravens, is going to dial up some really interesting looks that could put the Texans offense in a bit of a blender. Now, Stroud could rise above that without question, but I am slightly skeptical, so I have the under or the lower on the fantasy points. Dalton Kincaid higher, 39.5 receiving yards. He's been way over that. I think he's going to continue to be over that. He's a big part of this Bills passing offense. Brock Purdy lower, 30.5 passing attempts combined with Christian McCaffrey higher rushing yards. I just think their offense is really ground focused against Green Bay. Those are my 5 picks. Use code BENGAL and hopefully we win some money. But Jaden Daniels, you can't blame the Patriots for taking him. He is a really good dual threat quarterback, really good speed, but he moves so fluidly as well. good arm, and he's only been developing as a passer. It certainly helps when you have Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors to throw the ball to, and quite a decent bit of time at times behind that LSU offensive line as well, although he was able to use his legs so much. But yeah, Jaden Daniels really developed as a passer this past season, and it wouldn't shock me to see him be the number 3 overall pick. Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4, not shocking at all. We've kind of just believed this to be the case the entire draft cycle, pretty much. It just makes too much sense for the Cardinals. They have their quarterback, not going to move on from Kyler Murray. It doesn't make sense to do it financially either, even if you don't believe he's very good, which I think he is a very solid quarterback. Harrison Jr. is just a game changer and a really reliable option. Future wide receiver 1, obviously. But the Chargers is where things get interesting. Apparently the favorite player in the draft for Daniel Jeremiah, and you can't fault him for having a favorite. Doesn't mean he's saying Rome Odunze is the best, although he might believe that. Odunze is a tremendous player because he's got reliable hands. He's kind of like a crafty route runner as well. And this is something that I feel like not enough people are mentioning about Rome Odunze. This is someone with great deep speed. He's a big-time deep threat that can really fit well into the Chargers offense. They've kind of been looking for that guy for a while now. Jalen Guyton had been that big deep threat for a while. They really haven't had that true field stretcher. And Odunze is not going to be at the very top end of that. Malik Neighbors might even be a little bit better, more explosive, getting down the field. But Odunze is very, very talented. And yeah, the Chargers, even if you hold on to Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, they're only under contract for the 2024 season, and that's it. Same with Joshua Palmer, and your receiving core essentially boils down to Quentin Johnston, Darius Davis, and whoever you draft or sign off the street. So Odunze, wide receiver, makes sense at number 5 for the Chargers. Giants go Malik Neighbors at 6. I've had this for a while as well. I didn't really think that Odunze would be going ahead of Neighbors, and it's just because I think Malik Neighbors is so talented and so special as a player. And yeah, most explosive wideout in the draft, there you go. But he's so great after the catch. He can get down the field. He's a good route runner with reliable hands. I mean, this receiver class is absolutely loaded. If a guy like Jaden Daniels is off the board, even if he's on the board, you might consider a receiver still. But Neighbors makes the most sense to me here. It continues to make the most sense. I don't know that the Giants would take a tackle, because I think they still might try another year with Evan Neal going into year 3, hopefully healthy, ready to go with a new offensive line coach. I think receiver just makes more sense because they just don't have the guy at that position. Neighbors could be. Titans at 7 go Joe Alt. Yeah, as I continue to say, it continues to make the most sense. These are a lot of things that we've been doing in our mock drafts here on the channel. Joe Alt, really, really good player. He might be offensive tackle 1. It's really up in the air for me. If you want a future left tackle, I really truly believe it's between him and Olu Fashanu from Penn State. I would probably lean Fashanu, but Alt is also a really good athlete, former tight end, and kind of still has those movement skills. So Titans really need a tackle. I think that makes a ton of sense. Atlanta Falcons go Dallas Turner. I still believe this as well. I don't think it's going to be a quarterback here if a guy like Jaden Daniels is off the board. We might see a big rise from Bo Nix or Michael Penix even, although I really doubt he'll be a first-round player. It's certainly a possibility, right? If back end of the first round, maybe 20 and up to 32, I think it's a possibility, but I don't really think he's going to be a top 10 player, maybe is what I should say. But Bo Nix could be a first-round guy. He has great tools. He's younger than Michael Penix. We'll have to see if Bo Nix gets in here. I don't know. Again, I haven't seen it. But yeah, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and J.J. McCarthy are going to be the 3 that will they, won't they. But I think we see at least one of those guys get in the first round, if not more than that. But yeah, Dallas Turner, I think, is going to be the first defensive player off the board. The Falcons really need to bolster that pass rush. And Dallas Turner, really, really incredible athlete. As toolsy as they come, pretty much. And I think top 10 is a really good spot for him. I've had him either to Atlanta or Chicago. And Chicago goes with a defensive player. Well, top few wideouts are off the board already. So maybe you would pivot and go with a defensive lineman. I really think they could use an upgrade there. Obviously, you trade for Montez Sweat. But I don't think there's anything truly solidified, outside of some rotational guys at this point. Jared Verse, really good players. Really, really strong and powerful hands. And Bears need pass rush. You get it with Jared Verse. And here we go. Talisa Fuaga, offensive tackle 2 off the board. He's a mauler in the run game, starting right tackle, and the Jets could certainly use any type of an upgrade at any one of the tackle positions. That's why I would probably lean Fashanu here to just play left tackle. But Fuaga also makes sense. Mauler in the run game. But here he is at number 10 to the New York Jets. To me, it seems like a touch early for Fuaga. I just don't think I can get off my mind that Olu Fashanu might be the best tackle in the draft. So you have a little bit of pause there. Not that Fuaga is not a really talented player, because he is, but I would have a slight preference towards Fashanu. And Fuaga was somebody I was on for a while. You know, early into this 2023 season, he was a name that popped up. I think Corey Kanan on Twitter, he's a Browns guy, was hyping him up, and I went and watched him, and I was really, really impressed. Super fun player. That's the thing for offensive linemen. These guys that just pancake are super fun to watch. Fuaga, certainly no difference. He is the epitome of a power run blocker. Now, this is something I love. Obviously, big Texas Longhorns fan. Actually, we're in Texas City today. Byron Murphy out of Texas to the Minnesota Vikings at 11. Now, I've omitted Byron Murphy from a number of mock drafts that I've done just because I didn't think the league would be quite as high on him. Maybe, lack of top tier production put me in that state of mind. And it really does make sense that he's in the first round. 11, again, does seem pretty high. But Byron Murphy is an incredible athlete. And why would he go ahead of a guy like Devondre Sweat, who was more productive and Defensive Player of the Year and won the Outland at Texas? Nose tackle. Well, it is easier to find a nose tackle than it is an interior pass rusher like Byron Murphy, a pure disruptor on the inside. Now, Murphy, again, as a Texas fan, I try not to put my bias in the way, right? And I try not to. I've been hyping him up, but I didn't know that he would be projected to go quite this high. Really do love him as a player. Again, this is someone that can really, really get after the passer. He's about 290 pounds, but plays really, really strong. Low pad level. Short arms could hurt him. We'll see what the measurements come in on. They don't seem particularly long, but he certainly does a really, really, really great job with leverage and getting to the quarterback. Love Byron Murphy. Super excited to see him this high in the draft. That's awesome. Denver Broncos go Terrigan Arnold, cornerback out of Alabama. This is an interesting fit because the Broncos do have Pat Surtain, but outside of that, it's some solid corners and a really, really solid upcoming nickel, but not something that's necessarily solidified on the boundary. And I like PJ Locke, don't get me wrong, but, hook him. But Terrigan Arnold could be the best cornerback in the draft. I'm a huge fan of Nate Wiggins. I think Nate Wiggins could easily be the first corner off the board, as I've been saying. But Arnold really had a tremendous season, burst onto the scene. A ton of production when you talk about interceptions and pass breakups. Terrigan Arnold is probably at the top of the class in terms of, that combined figure of pass breakups plus interceptions. And he did so in the SEC, playing at Alabama. Really, really good player. The Broncos could use an upgrade in their secondary. Now, I'm not sure that this is a more pressing need than interior defensive line or even edge or quarterback or maybe even receiver. But a lot of those top tier positions are off the board and teams don't necessarily draft on this is what we need the most. They take the best player available that can see the field, hopefully somewhat early. So I do like Terrigan Arnold to the Broncos here. Raiders go Olu Fashanu at 13. Teams are split on Fashanu after a dominant 2022 season. Took a step back in 2023, but the talent is still immense. Now, I found it interesting because I did read this from Brandon Thorne, very highly respected offensive line guy. Says, always enjoy reading these. I don't agree with Olu taking a step back this year. The Ohio State game was shaky. That was against JT Tuimoloau. But following that up with maybe the best 3-game stretch of his career counterbalanced that well. I do think he took a step forward as a run blocker as well. So it could be the case that teams are split on him. I really do respect the opinion of Brandon Thorne when it comes to offensive line play. Really, really good follow on Twitter. Would definitely recommend checking him out. Fashanu, I'm a big fan of. He was incredible in 2022, and really other than that Ohio State game against JT Tuimoloau that gave him a little bit of trouble in 2022 as well, if I recall. I thought he was pretty good. I really love his athleticism. I think he's the best pass protecting offensive lineman in the class. And at the end of the day, that is truly what I personally value most from an offensive lineman, is at least a tackle, I should say, is their ability to pass protect, especially left tackle on an island. I think Olufashanu can do that. I think 13 is incredible value here for the Raiders, and I guess you'd be playing him over at right tackle. We know all about Colton Miller on that left side. Now, they could use an upgrade there. I think the value here is just probably too much to pass on. And here we go. Here we go. Bo Nix at 14. I'm a big fan of Nix's game. I think his experience as a 5-year starter is a positive for him as he heads to the next level. He would be a plug-and-play starter in New Orleans. I'm not confident the Saints view Derek Carr as the answer. Well, he's certainly, without question, right on that last part. Derek Carr definitely is not great. I think we all know that, and that's probably being very nice. Bo Nix, here are the things. There are positives to his game. He's not the same guy at Auburn. It's really tough to get that out of your head, but he was certainly very good at Oregon. Now, there are two schools of thought on what I'm about to say next. Is that so many of his passes were at or behind the line of scrimmage. Now, you either think that that's because he can't push the ball down the field, or that the offense just didn't require that. And I don't know, because when Bo Nix does push the ball down the field, he's certainly been pretty good. It's not so difficult when you have Troy Franklin to throw to with miles of separation at times, especially against the USC defense, right? Bo Nix is a fun player, a lot of heart. You know, this is a tough guy who wants to be out there competing, and that does factor into the evaluation at quarterback. Bo Nix has been a tough player for me to get into the first round. 14 does seem a little rich, but he is toolsy. Does have traits. He does have a good arm, does have good mobility. And for a team looking for a quarterback, that could elevate a player like Bo Nix well into the first round. We saw it happen with Mac Jones from Alabama, and I think Bo Nix is probably a better prospect than Mac Jones. We saw it happen with Kenny Pickett out of Pitt to the Steelers, and Bo Nix, athletically, is better than Kenny Pickett. It's an interesting one. Saints certainly need a quarterback. Colts at 15 go Brock Bowers. Now, I don't know. In terms of best player available, obviously, I think Brock Bowers makes sense here at 15. I think he's one of the top 5 best players in the class. Certainly the best tight end, without question, right? Even my guy, Jatavion Sanders, love him. But Brock Bowers to the Colts, I don't think they would do at 15. Just personally, I don't believe that. And it's not even factoring in Mo Alley-Cox. They have Jelani Woods, was on IR this year, but Jelani Woods is someone that showed pretty good promise as a rookie, is a total freak in terms of size and speed. He's 6'7", like 260 pounds almost, I think, and still developing as a receiver, right? But they also have Andrew Ogletree. They have Will Mallory. They have a lot of tight ends, man. And I don't know that Brock Bowers would be where they would look in the first round. When you have some talent at the position already and youth, those guys are under contract. I don't know that they would add another tight end to the group. I get that he's going to be tricky to place in mock drafts. I totally respect that. I just don't think the Colts is a particularly good fit for him. Now, the argument against that is that, well, Brock Bowers is better than all of those guys. And that's fair. That's fair. Seattle Seahawks at 16 go Troy Fautanu. Offensive tackle to Washington that could definitely slide inside to play guard. Now, the reason I smile at this is because I've had this in my mocks consistently over the past few months, and I've gotten heat on it because it's, oh, don't just put Fautanu to the Seahawks because he's local at Washington. Teams don't draft that way. He's such a good player that the fit just made too much sense. And now I feel even more justified. This is going to be back to a mock draft mainstay for me. Now we'll see. And here's another one that I like. Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo. Ton of production in 2022, 5 interceptions, 20 pass breakups, but wasn't challenged as much in 2023. He's incredibly gifted and will put on a show when it comes to athletic testing. This is something I've been saying for a while if you've watched the mock drafts. I've typically had him down the board. I think the Jags may have been a landing spot, but now they're picking a little bit higher. Had him to the Ravens. I think I've had him to the Rams potentially. I've certainly had him to the Eagles. Now, Mitchell, you see Toledo and you go, all right, he played in the MAC. who cares? But especially at cornerback, that's not something I necessarily care about. I care, how well do you move? Can you mirror? Can you match? Can you stay in phase? Can you run with these guys? A lot of that kind of means the same thing. But checks off a lot of boxes. Looks like he has pretty long arms when you watch him. Certainly runs about as well as anybody. This is someone that has verified 4.3 speed according to Dane Brugler of The Athletic. This is someone with NFL size and athleticism. And when you can move the way that he does, this has the makings of a first-round pick. I certainly believe it. Now, will he end up going in the first round? It's tough to say. When you get even to the 10th overall pick, you start to question, are these guys going to be surefire first-round picks when we get to late April? A lot can change, a lot will change, but certainly Mitchell's someone that deserves to be in that conversation. J.C. Latham out of Alabama. The Bengals go with another Alabama offensive tackle. They had Andre Smith several years ago, Jonah Williams most recently, and now J.C. Latham. But Latham, I think, is a plug-and-play starting right tackle. I love J.C. Latham as a prospect. I've kind of talked about the way I view the tackles. I think it's probably, for my money, and take it for what it is, I'm not a top-tier offensive line evaluator. Still trying to learn, and that's part of why I follow Brandon Thorne on Twitter. Trying to learn the offensive line positions, figure out responsibilities, and it's a lot. You got to know specific plays to know responsibilities to figure out what someone's supposed to do and what it's supposed to look like. And J.C. Latham at Alabama, this is a guy that's just bigger and stronger than everybody. That's just kind of my interpretation watching him, and I think he's going to be a really, really solid player. I think Olu Fashanu is up there as OT1, alt maybe 1A, 1B, depending on how you view those guys. Latham, I think, is probably 3. It's just he plays right tackle instead of left, and those guys are typically a little bit less valuable. I'm not sure he has incredible movement skills, but is so big and so strong that I think he's going to end up being a solid player, the same way we saw DeJuan Jones have success at Ohio State, moving to Cleveland with the Browns here this past season. Bengals really need to upgrade at right tackle. J.C. Latham, I think, fits the bill. L.A. Rams at 19 go Laiatu Latu from UCLA. And now, interestingly enough, DJ says he wouldn't rule out a quarterback with this pick. Rams could follow the Packers' Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love blueprint and begin developing a passer behind Matthew Stafford. If they don't go that route, continuing to add pass rushers would be a smart move. Now, their defensive line is looking like one of the better defensive lines in the league. Not sure how long you can count on Aaron Donald, but Kobe Turner had an incredible season. Brett Coleman, I know, was very high on him in the draft this past year. I was quite high on Byron Young, who also had an incredible season out of Tennessee. And not to be confused with interior defensive lineman Byron Young out of Alabama. But Laiatu Latu is one of my favorite players in the entire draft. I think he's probably the best overall in terms of technical skill. Best pass rusher. Turner with higher upside. But Latu, it's just about injury with him that I think maybe drops him down the board a little bit, because he's probably a top 10 player in the class. I think he's got a really high ceiling, or high floor, and a decently high ceiling as well, but high floor. I think he's going to be a good player pretty much right away. Will he be able to become a great player? That's going to be the question that's answered over his NFL career. But the Rams could certainly use more pass rush. I also feel like corner is a really good position for them here. So with a guy like Nate Wiggins available, I could definitely consider that at 19. Steelers at 20 go Amarius Mims from Georgia. We've had this before too. Gets to team up with his teammate at Georgia, Broderick Jones, and this is a really good combo. Mims has only had like 8 career starts, something crazy low. So when you're trying to watch Georgia film, it's difficult to find Amarius Mims at times, because didn't play a ton in 2022. Ended up taking over the starting job and was really good down the stretch. And then in 2023 has dealt with some injuries. Made him miss a lot of time. But as far as athleticism goes, I mean, Amarius Mims is athletic as any offensive tackle in this draft. He's got big time upside. Has played right tackle at Georgia. We'll see if a team likes him at left tackle in the NFL. I think he's certainly athletic enough to do it, but could be an adjustment period there as well. But right now, Amarius Mims is a great athlete with great tools. We'll see if he can become a more technically skilled player at the position. Dolphins go Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. Love Brian Thomas. Incredible player, long strider, deep speed, good hands, and the Dolphins, man, unreal. Speed, speed, speed. You could, rotate in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle into the slot to find mismatches, Thomas Jr. on the outside. But the theme here is that everyone can stretch the field. And a big thing that people don't think about typically with, guys that stretch the field, big time speed, is how much it opens up the entire field and creates opportunities underneath. And we have guys that are excellent after the catch, like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, getting more speed to put stress on the back end of a defense, space things out a bit. It creates a ton of room underneath. And for a passer like Tua Tagovailoa, this is someone that does their best work over the middle and underneath, anticipating the open windows, fitting the ball in there. It's a great fit just on field spacing alone. But then, of course, you get another big-time deep threat that can take the top off the defense and win down the field, and it's a really, really fun fit. Eagles at 22 go Tyler Guyton. Eagles need to start planning for the end of Lane Johnson's career. Why not go shopping at the same store? Of course, Oklahoma. And also, Lane Johnson, I want to say, was a transfer as well to Oklahoma. I thought it was maybe a JUCO guy. And Tyler Guyton, TCU, but transferred to Oklahoma. And also, we've talked about it before, really, really good athlete. I think he ends up in the first round. The Senior Bowl is going to be awesome this year. It's going to be awesome, as well as the East-West Shrine Bowl, which I think I'll probably be going to up there in the DFW area. Tyler Guyton, really good athlete. He'll be at the Senior Bowl, I believe. And those one-on-ones are going to be really fun. And a guy like him, who's so talented and so gifted athletically, as DJ says here, it's going to be really fun in those one-on-ones to see that guy operate in space. Was really good doing it at Oklahoma. I think he's going to be a solid pro. And the Eagles, of course, we know what they like to do in the first round. It's the trenches, offensive and defensive line. And this is just kind of, a theme that they follow. Texans at 23 go Chop Robinson at Penn State. Robinson joins last year's number 3 overall pick, Will Anderson Jr., and potentially Jonathan Grenard if the Texans are able to retain the pending free agent. Robinson is a little more dynamic than Anderson, but not nearly as polished. And that certainly is very true. Robinson is twitchy as all hell. He is a twitched up freak speed rusher. Now, does he need to work on hand placement? Having an actual pass rush plan? Certainly. But when he wins off the edge, he wins quickly. He just has an athletic makeup that very few have. That could get him into the first round. Not guaranteed, but certainly a possibility that a team banks on his upside. We've seen it happen, many times before. Cowboys go Jordan Morgan, tackle out of Arizona, with the 24th pick. Considering the age of Tyron Smith, and also, his contract is up as well. It's important to add to the offensive line. Cowboys would have a good young duo to build around with Morgan and 2022 first-round pick Tyler Smith. Tyler Smith is emerging as one of the best left guards in the league. No way around it. He's been really, really good in that transition. Played tackle at Tulsa, but has been a very, very good guard. And do you move him back to left tackle when he's so good at left guard? Just draft a tackle, and Jordan Morgan is a good one out of Arizona. Cowboys, it's just tough with Tyron Smith because he's still very good when he plays, but age and injury is really a tough combo for Tyron Smith at this time. Now, do I think he's going to retire? Tough to say, but he's certainly going to be good when he's healthy. Packers go Graham Barton. Played tackle at Duke, but projected to be a guard at the next level. Now, the Packers love versatility on the offensive line, and you have left tackle for now in David Bakhtiari. Injury's a bit of a problem. Rasheed Walker, I know, has played there. He's not been quite as good as David Bakhtiari, obviously. Now, Zach Tom at right tackle, on the other hand, has been fantastic. The interior is less good, is a nice way to say that. So, if you're looking for versatility and just, playing your best 5, Graham Barton makes a ton of sense. I think corner, certainly something the Packers should consider here as well. Tampa Bay Bucks at 26 go with cornerback Ennis Rakestraw out of Mizzou. This is someone I have not watched yet, but hearing things, toughness and competitive makes sense. Press corner, haven't watched him yet, so I really can't speak too much to this. I know Trevor Sikkema is quite high on him. Seen him up the board on the PFF PFF big board from Trevor Sikkema. So, people like Ennis Rakestraw. I have not got to him yet. It's still, pretty early in the draft cycle. I do watch some of these guys along the course of the year, but sometimes just, 2 or 3 games because that's all you have at the time. So I have more tape now. Obviously, January, February, March, certainly a time where I really dive into that. But I can't say enough about Ennis Rakestraw Jr. right now. Just that the Bucks could certainly use help at the back end, and you can't hate a corner. Now, I am interested that, yeah, Cooper DeJean and Nate Wiggins have not gone yet. DeJean is the more versatile DB. Wiggins, I thought, and I've only seen a couple games of his, but has good size, long arms, big-time speed. I figure that he was going to be somebody that was a lock to be a first rounder. We haven't seen him in the top 27 picks here as the Cardinals go Cooper DeJean. Cardinals can take the best player available with their second pick in round 1. DeJean has the versatility to play any position in the secondary, which I certainly agree with that. Really, really awesome athlete. And I know white corner seems crazy. I know it's just a funny type of thing. There's a stigma there, obviously, but he's certainly athletic enough to play that position. He's returned punts for Iowa, as I say every time, and he's been electric doing that. Got knocked out at the end of the year with injury, but super fun player. If you're going to bank on someone being maybe, I don't want to say the best player in the draft in 5 years, but I think he's going to be in that conversation. You know, think about a safe, reliable pick. I think that's what Cooper DeJean is. I know he's going to be good. I know it. The thing I've really noticed over the years, especially when it comes to defensive back, is, well, and linebacker, instincts are everything. And instincts can sometimes make up for not having top-tier athleticism, but when you have a combination of both, it makes a special player. And Cooper DeJean has instincts for days. And I'm not just saying that because, you know, white corner, we got to find out some way to say he makes up for not great athleticism with knowledge. I'm not saying that because it's a stupid narrative. But DeJean's a really good athlete with great instincts. Kyle Hamilton's one of those guys with incredible instincts, and why he's so awesome playing downhill. He just has a nose for the football, knows where it's going to be. And I think DeJean has similar qualities, but maybe even a little bit better in space. Buffalo Bills go Illinois defensive tackle Jerzon Johnny Newton. And yeah, he's an undersized interior defensive lineman with a lot of juice up on the interior. He lived in the backfield at Illinois. It's kind of tough to evaluate a player like this for me sometimes because I know he doesn't have NFL coveted size. So you kind of have to take what you're seeing on tape with a grain of salt. He was a guy that really impressed me in 2022. And this is someone that, again, lives in the backfield. It's just, will that work in the NFL? That's the question that a lot of teams are going to have to answer where they draft him. But I love him as a player. Kansas City Chiefs at 29 go with UNC's Montez Walker. Tez Walker transferred from Kent State, if I remember correctly. Really, really fun player. He dominated at Kent State and then came to UNC, was not eligible to play, and then dominated down the stretch when he actually was eligible. So, really, really fun player as well. It is a stacked receiver class. It is stacked. If you need a receiver, you can't get one in the first round, I wouldn't even worry about it. Obviously, you might miss out on some top-tier guys, but the guys that make it to day 2 have just as good a chance to be great NFL players, in my opinion. Tez Walker, certainly someone that deserves to be in consideration and in the conversation to be a first-round pick. Lions go with Nate Wiggins at Clemson. Wiggins, it's a height, weight, speed corner. Very rangy, will help the Lions defense that should be playing often with a lead. Why am I reading these out of order? Given the team's talent on offense. Yeah, I like Nate Wiggins quite a bit. I'm not saying he is, you know, technically refined at this point in his career, but a lot to work with there. And this is a guy that hustles. I mean, one of the things that really impressed me about him was there was a big run that broke off against UNC. I'll show you in a minute. And the hustle he shows on this play is something that just gets you excited. Now, it doesn't have a whole ton with playing the cornerback position, but I think it speaks a lot to what Nate Wiggins brings you as a player and I guess as a person, but it's the competitor on the field with the hustle and the determination and the giving 100%, because you don't always get that, especially not at corner. But Nate Wiggins, man, I mean, the hustle was incredible. I'll show you here. Saves a touchdown. So UNC runs to the right here, and then it's a touchdown. It's a touchdown. Nate Wiggins, number 2, comes flying in, grabs the football out, and strips it at the goal line to deny a touchdown. That was something that I saw on tape, and I go, wow. I thought this was a big-time touchdown. I'm trying to find the UNC running back name to write down for you know, take a look at him next. And Nate Wiggins, I go, wow, what an incredible play. really, really, really special type of a play. And it made me respect him a ton as a player. And outside of that, he's got, yeah, NFL size and speed. Niners at 31 go Kool-Aid McKinstry, who does have good size. Not maybe quite top tier speed. Could get into the first round, though. And you talk about someone with patience, but size. If you can kind of develop a little bit more feistiness into him, like Terry and Arnold, his teammate, has, I think you got a really, really good player in Kool-Aid McKinstry. Now, Niners, I think, should go offensive line with this pick just because they have so many holes and it's such a good class that I'm not sure you have to take a cornerback here at 31. I like Kool-Aid. I think I prefer an offensive lineman at this point, especially given some that are still on the board. And I'm not sure you'd have to take a center here like Jackson Powers Johnson. It's certainly not Zach Frazier from West Virginia, but you go tackle. I mean, Patrick Paul's still there. You have a number of good players that are still available. Now, I have to see where these guys end up going in the draft. But yeah, I think offensive line still makes the most sense to me there. But Kool-Aid McKinstry, I get it. And then the Ravens go with Troy Franklin out of Oregon at 32. Ultra explosive would be another weapon for Lamar Jackson, further strengthening an underrated receiver room. Now, they do have some expiring contracts, so receiver, again, makes sense to me. Troy Franklin is just the type of player that you can't find down the board too much. He's got electric speed. When I see him, you know, it's not Will Fuller necessarily. I kind of see a bit more Christian Watson, although Watson, I think I maybe even liked a little bit more as a prospect. Now, again, need to go and see more film on these guys, but Franklin has about as much speed down the field as you're going to find in the entire draft, and decent ball skills as well. I just wonder what the route tree in the NFL is going to look like. I'm not sure this guy is super quick in and out of his breaks. He's great down the field. Not sure he's so technically refined as a route runner, especially at the top of the stem, man. I think he's just got to be quicker in and out of his breaks, but he's a really good athlete. Maybe he'll be able to add that skill at the NFL level, but also could have done it at the back end of 2023. I'm excited to dive in and see. But yes, that's going to do it for DJ's mock draft and reaction. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Check him out on Twitter at MoveTheSticks. And this is the space to be for NFL draft coverage for the 2024 NFL draft. And I appreciate you guys for watching. See you in the next one. Take it easy.